So today, as you know, we have the Creating CMAs for Your Clients class. There we go. Miss Colleen already has her page up. Wonderful, wonderful. We are going to be going through, hi, Miss Colleen. There you go. So we'll be going through two different kinds of CMAs. Well, we've got that wonderful high-level overview that you get, that one-line report out of Paragon. Also show you how to bring all your selected comparables over to CloudCMA. Colleen's going to go through some wonderful customizations, some really cool things. And speaking of those really cool things, I have in your handout section, should be, if you don't see that on the right-hand side of your screen, the little orange tab, go ahead and open that up. And you will see, I think it's just called handouts, 4 different handouts in there. These are all the ones we keep in the MLS documents under MiRealSource Education. We have like 82, 83. Do you remember, Colleen, how many cheat sheets we have there?
I think there is 5. I think there's 5 cheat sheets.
Oh, yes, but in the MLS docs, we have about 83.
Oh, yes, yes, 80, I think it's 83 or 86. Debbie, you've done an amazing job.
Well, I have a lot of staff to help with, like you, actual realtors in the real working field out there using these. So that's a nice thing. A lot of our cheat sheets, like Lisa started some, and then I'll just take them and tweak them as the system updates. That's all we need. Like AuthentiSign now has to be updated because the system has been that choice of going to AuthentiSign 2.0 or staying with the classic view at the minute. So in those handouts, we do have the handout on how to upload a PDF into your CMA, which I'll bet you $1 when Colleen shows you hers, there'll be some really cool PDFs loaded up in there. It was probably from her brokerage, little branding, standing out from the crowd. That's how we have to do it. But today, my job is going to be in the background. This is Colleen's class today. So we have 26, 27 registered. So that usually might generate a few more questions. So I'll be in the background, double checking any questions. And if necessary, I'll try to interrupt Colleen and say, hey, so-and-so would like to see that again. So if you need to see something again, feel free to let us know. We will definitely try to circle back to that and show you some really cool stuff. Is there anything else? We have a hand up already. Marietta Boker. All righty, so let's double check. We have a question. Oh, there we are. I had my questions buried. Oh, sure, hand is down. Okay, all righty. So we have more than half the classes here already. So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Lovely Colleen Delange.
I don't know about lovely. With all this humidity, it's a little more like a Q-tip up there on my head today, but
there's some good fluff there.
Oh, just what I always wanted to look like, a chrysanthemum. So yeah, all this humidity. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today. So I apologize, I was about a minute late getting in. As soon as I started the webinar up, I had a little updating to do. But basically, I am going to take you through CloudCMA. As Debbie mentioned, I'm going to show you the one-page report. I'm going to show you the multiple-page report. I'm going to show you how to really wow sellers today, and I'm also going to show you some time-saving tips and techniques. But I'm also going to show you some secrets, some of what the appraisers use. So when you're trying to find the right comps, you're staying within the right parameters. So we're going to go over a lot of fun stuff today. As Debbie mentioned, she's behind the scenes taking all of your questions. So when we are on a screen, if you have a question, just open up that GoToWebinar box, type your question in right then and there, because a lot of times Debbie will just interrupt me and I can go through it again. So because it's via webinar and we're not all the way back to full classes yet, we're doing some, in person at offices. We're doing some, via webinar. So we want you to be able to still ask any question that you may have. So type your question in. Debbie can go ahead and answer it. And a lot of times, like I said, she'll just interrupt me. If you need to see it again, don't hesitate to say that, because if I get, kind of rolling along and I miss something, or you're like, well, where was that button again? Just go ahead and type it right into that questions box, and we'll go ahead and address it, and I can go over it again, because I want you to be really comfortable with creating a great wow presentation using CloudCMA. Again, I'm also going to show you some tips using the Paragon CMA. We're going to do kind of a one-pager. We're going to do kind of a full-on presentation, and I'm also going to show you the brand new Cloud Live, which I have to tell you I love. It does things like allows you to pull properties from an interactive map. So if you're sitting with a seller and he says, well, Joe closed yesterday on his house and you ran the CMA 3 days ago, you can actually go into a live map and pull that in on the fly, does auto calculations for you. It just does so much. So I'm excited to show it all to you today. So as Debbie also mentioned, there are some handouts, and we're going to show you where there's some great cheat sheets that you can go back to at any time. Debbie actually put a bunch of the handouts in the GoToWebinar panel, so you can use them right now. And with that, I'm going to turn off my fuzzy hair, and we're going to get into why you're here, and we're going to take a look at the CloudCMA program. Now, one thing I want to point out real quick is, let me grab a good example here, is there's a lot of different ways to display your results in Cloud. And sometimes you may just want a short and sweet presentation. You may just want, easy peasy, just, meat and potatoes, here's what your home is worth. But other times, if you're going up against other agents, you maybe want that wowing presentation. So I kind of teach this class a little bit backwards. I like to show you what the presentation part is going to look like first, and then now we can go through how it's made step by step. So first, let me show you what we're going to learn today, and then we'll go through it step by step. All right, so first and foremost, there are different ways to present your CMA. Maybe you want to save your CMA to your desktop so you can actually just go through it. If you don't have an internet connection, you can save it as a PDF. And basically, once you set up your template in CloudCMA, all the hard part is really done for you. I can tell you on average now, my CMA takes between 7 and 12 minutes because I've got all of my templates set up, my custom pages are there. It's really, really easy for me to just now bring over the comps with one click and pull them right into my CMA report. So I'm going to show you how to do that, so don't worry. There's also different branding. Now, I love the new Cloud branding because it has your photo at the bottom. I think it makes a wowing presentation. There are some pages that are pre-written that you can choose to use in your CMA, but you don't have to. You can make this completely unique to you. There's also custom pages, as Debbie mentioned. So literally, I went into my Keller Williams Lakeside where I work, and I grabbed my company website, and I simply copied and pasted this page. It literally took about 30 seconds, and now it's all set up in my template. And I'll show you that today too. Another thing that I really like to do is I like to include the market stats, because if I'm going to sit down at a seller's kitchen table, I want to be able to tell them exactly what's going on, especially in the market we're seeing right now. So if you are looking at my market stats page, and by the way, I pulled this right from Paragon. I pulled it with 2 clicks. But when I listed this property, you can see that the market inventory was down 59% or 58.9%, if you will. That in 2019, we had 219 homes. In 2020, we had 90. So what did it do to our average sales price? Well, it brought it up from 193 to 223. So you can see supply and demand, right? We've got such a low amount of inventory right now. It's really pushing numbers through the roof as far as the average sales prices. It will also show you things like in 2019, when I listed this particular property, there were 219 homes on the market. Now there were 90 when we were looking at the numbers. So obviously supply and demand. If I was going to put a price range on this home, I certainly would want to put it on the high side because we can see that there's such a low amount of inventory, homeowners are getting more for their homes. I also like to include, when I'm doing a CMA, the previous MLS ticket. So especially, a lot of times you'll end up selling them a home. Now you're going to list their home. I want to show them I did my homework. I know when they closed on it, what they paid, what's the financing. So I like to have the previous MLS ticket also in my CMA, as you can see here. I also like to really do my homework. So I want to make sure that I am including the realist record and the BS&A record. I want to have the history, the mortgage information. I want to have all that right in my CMA. So when they say, well, Colleen, where did you get my square footage from? Well, I can say, well, I actually pulled it. Here's the information that the city has for you. I have the information right from Realist. And the reason I like to also include Realist is it shows not only the sales history, but if they refied or if they went into foreclosure. All of those things are here, and I can see that under the history of the property. I also sometimes pull this because, as you can see, and this is a really good example, this is kind of why I use this one, up here in the top right-hand corner, you can see that the tax record, the municipality or the BS&A report says that it's got 1 bath, but the MLS is clearly stating it has 2 baths. So sometimes you'll even find discrepancies that you'll want to ask about. So if they want to know, where did you get that square footage from? How do you know how many bathrooms I have? I can pull up the BS&A record and the Realist record and have that information here. Now, another thing I always do is BS&A is also really good now. In many cities, they will have assessments. So if there's an outstanding assessments that is due, you'll see that in the BS&A record. You'll also see unpaid water bills. I recently listed a home in Warren, and there was a $500 unpaid water bill attached to the property. It will also show unpaid taxes. So if I'm going to clearly net out a seller, I want to include all of those things. I want to go in and I want to be able to look at that BS&A and figure out those things, or at least be able to ask the questions. This particular seller had about $7,000 of unpaid property taxes. And so what happened was there was a death in the family. She purchased it from someone. She moved in. She did not know about homesteading. And so when I was sitting down with her to net her out, we actually looked at all these unpaid property taxes. And I said, you know, I can clearly see you only own this property. And so you could actually have homesteaded this. So long story short, she was able to go down to the city and they refunded her those tax amounts. So having those conversations can be so helpful, because just being able to clearly tell them what they're going to walk away with at the end of the sale, but having all the information in front of you is a huge help. Especially, you know, if you have a situation like that, you don't want to get to the closing table and find out, oh wait, there's another $7,000 due from property taxes. So clearly I want to put in things like the BS&A record. I want to have all that information included. And as you can see, here's the actual tax record that I included. I do this for another reason as well. At the bottom, you'll notice the date is on here, so that if I want to go back into my historical records or something changes, I have history of what I presented and what was due at that time. So I like to have those records right in my CMA as I'm going through it. Here's another example of the water bill or assessments that may be outstanding. So having all of those things in your report is extremely helpful. It will also show the seller where the comparables are that you're pulling. But my favorite is really the way that it stacks up the comparables so they're easy to see, so the seller can take a look. And if that seller says, well, Colleen, I know that's a nice home over there on Martingale, but does it have a finished basement? Well, the good news is it also allows you to include those interior photos. So I can see, oh, actually, no, the basement was not finished on Martingale. So it allows you to have all of that information so that you can clearly stack one property up against the other. Okay, and then obviously we're going to go into picking comparables, using some of the tips and tricks that the appraisers use, but it's really just a nice demonstration. I'm actually going to jump down a little bit here more to the bottom so I don't make you go through all those comparables. Really, my ideal CMA is between 3 and 5 comparables, meaning 3 to 5 closed sales. I also like to include things though, like you know, if there's an active or a pending, I want to include those too. But then it will give you an analysis section, and that will basically show you, okay, where on the scale range it is the average listing closing. How long is it taking the average listing to sell or close? What's the average square footage price? As we can see here, these properties at this time were selling at 102% of what they were listed at, and we're looking at 13 days on the market. It will also break it down by square footage, just making it a little easier for the seller to digest. And then there are some great, as I mentioned, pre-written marketing pieces. You can choose to use them or not. It's completely up to you. I personally really liked this one because I know a lot of times when I would sit down with especially sellers who were selling maybe their first home, you know, they'd look at that commission amount and they'd go, oh my gosh, you must be just, you know, rolling in dough. They don't usually understand that you pay a brokerage to work there. They also don't understand that there are two agents in the process, a listing agent and a selling agent. So sometimes using these great graphs and marketing pieces are really helpful for, you know, talking about those objections ahead. All right, so that is kind of the CMA PDF presentation. But as I mentioned, there's also a brand new live presentation. So let's take a look at that one. Basically, the CMA is created the exact same way. It's just how do you want to present it? Do you want to present it in a PDF like I just showed you? Or would you do something maybe a little more interactive like we're doing right now using live streaming services? So if I click on I want to view this live, well, this would be a great way to present my CMA if I'm not with the seller. There are still some sellers. I have a seller right now who she's pregnant and she's very nervous about having a lot of germs in the house. Doesn't want a lot of people going through just yet. She's just not at that comfort point. And so she said, you know what, could you just email it to me? Well, instead of just emailing a CMA, I would rather go through it so they fully understand what we're looking at and fully understand what the net out's going to be. So the new CloudCMA Live allows you to go up to this little hamburger stack up here at the top, and it allows you to pick a live streaming service. Maybe you want to present it via Zoom. Maybe you want to present it via Microsoft Teams, Skype, via Google Hangout or Screen. You can actually present it in a live streaming service so that you can go over everything with them. Now this one has a couple unique features that the PDF does not because it's interactive. Now you could just click on the start presentation and it's very similar to what I just showed you, but you can actually include a video resume. Which I think really looks amazing. You could have a little video of you and services that you offer, maybe shaking hands in front of your sign. But one of the other benefits is not only does it allow you to stack the comparables, as you see here, but it allows you to see differences. So here's my subject property on the left. Over here to the right, we have, well, let's see, we have the one that's the closest to them, has 2% less square footage. So maybe it closed for a little bit less. Over here, we have 8% less square footage, but we have an additional bathroom. Over here, we have 10% more square footage and no garage. So you can actually see differences and they're calculated out. And it might be a little bit hard to see over GoToWebinar, I apologize. But if you can kind of see this 9 right here on this Potomac, is actually green, and it's showing that there's 9% additional square footage. Here's our additional bathroom. So it's doing those calculations for you so that you can actually tell them maybe why a property closed for less or for more than the property you're getting ready to list. All right, so I'm going to jump back to the map because this was another cool thing when I started playing with this. And again, this is very new, so you may not have used this yet, and that's totally okay. But if you click on that interactive map right up here at the top, what I generally will do is I'll click on that map and I'll zoom out just a little. And what it allows you to do is grab additional comps that you may not have included in your CMA. So let's pretend for a moment that they said, well, Joe over there on the corner, he actually closed yesterday. And I ran these numbers maybe 3 or 4 days ago. I can actually zoom in. I can find Joe over here on the corner. Now, maybe I didn't include this because, as you can see, my property was a ranch. This one happens to be a bungalow. Maybe the square footage was different. But at least I can talk to him and I can actually go over the information with him right from here. So I can say, oh, well, actually, I didn't include this one because it's a bungalow. If I said, oh, you know what, I should have included that one, and you're right, that could bring us a little additional revenue, I can actually include it in my CMA by one click. I can now include my comp that will be stacked into my comparables. So it's a little bit more interactive so that if you need to make changes on the fly, you absolutely can do that. You can go right into your map, pull a property in. Let's say we wanted to pull this one over here. We click on that little red circle. By the way, all these dots are just MLS listings. If I wanted to now use this particular comp, I'm going to click on it and include it in my CMA. So there's some very, very cool, new, very interactive things. Now, you don't just have to do this live stream. I know that was a question before. If you wanted to use this interactive one sitting at their kitchen table, as long as you have internet, you can totally do that. Or maybe your hotspot off your phone, you know, either way, as long as you're able to access the internet, you can go through this live version, even sitting at their kitchen table too. All right, so let's get into how we actually do this. Debbie, do we have any questions yet before I jump into the Paragon portion?
Actually, yes. Beth just had a really good question. So when you have the side-by-side comparisons going,
okay,
are the differences adjusting the pricing? So 1,200 square feet versus 1,600 square feet is $10,000 plus or minus in pricing.
Ooh, good question. There is a place that you could actually do that. It is not auto-calculating the prices or the list price or original price. It's not auto-calculating any of that difference for you. And the reason is that it really did close for X amount. So for instance, it really did close for 125, even though it may have had less square footage or, you know, less bathroom, whatever it is. It still closed for this particular figure. Now, that being said, though, I am going to show you today where you can use a really cool tool that is actually part of RPR to figure out a baseline on adjustments, and you could add an adjustments line that actually will allow you to put in negative 3,000 because it didn't have a garage. Maybe your subject property is the only one with no garage. You could actually do that separately without adjusting the number. So no, it doesn't do that automatically for you because the numbers really are the sold price. That is really what it's sold for. But you can add an adjustments line to call their attention to why something may have closed for less or more. So very good question.
Thank you.
Did that answer her question, Deb?
I believe so. She hasn't responded back just yet, so.
All right.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Beth.
Perfect. All right, so now let's go into how do you make these great presentations. So as I mentioned, my average CMA really doesn't take me that long because I have my template all set up. But obviously the most important part of your CMA is the comparables you choose. Obviously, if you've got a 1,000 square foot brick ranch, you're not going to compare it to a 5,000 square foot colonial because you want to keep your apples to apples. So we're going to do kind of a run-of-the-mill example today. Keep in mind, though, if you're working in a very rural area or you're working in an area where there isn't a lot of comps right now, sometimes you have to broaden these tips and tricks that I'm going to teach you. You might have to go a little further out. You might not be able to specify if it's a ranch or a colonial. It just depends. I'm going to give you kind of the baseline CMA information, what you generally want to go by. But of course, if you're working in a rural area, or as I mentioned, if you're working in an area where there is no comps, sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative. But let's go ahead and get started with the basics. So the first thing I want to do is I obviously want to search for the closed properties because that's obviously what they closed for. That's going to give us the numbers that we can actually give our seller as true comps. So we're going to start off going to search in Paragon. And under my search tab, I obviously want to search if I'm listing vacant land. Well, of course, that's the type of search I want to do. But I'm going to do run of the mill. We're going to do a single family residential home today. I picked this particular property because I recently sold it and because it has some really good examples. So obviously I want to get my subject property as close to the comps as possible. So when I'm going in, I obviously, if I'm listing a condo, well, I want to specify that it's a condo. In this case, I'm going to do a single family home. And what are our statuses? Well, really, the numbers I'm looking for are the closed numbers. That's the most important. But I am a huge, huge Floyd Wickman fan. I don't know if anybody even knows on this call who Floyd Wickman is. He was I just think an awesome real estate coach in the early 80s. He had a program called Sweat Hogs. He just did a phenomenal job. And he always said, if you're going to sit at someone's kitchen table, they know what Joe Schmagegi on the corner is listed for, and they want to know you know it. So I always was taught to add actives and pendings. Now, of course, these are not numbers that we are going to figure into our closed sales price. But what it does show us is what the actives, what the competition is priced at. And it also shows, if something went pending, what was that price that they had it listed at. So I want to include that. Now, not so much in this market, because as you know, things are selling for so far over asking at this point. It's a little crazy. But if the market shifts, here's another little tip and trick that I learned in Floyd's class. Always include in your report or have in your briefcase or purse or wherever you keep your documents an overpriced expired. Now, I usually like to include it right in my CMA, and I'll tell you why. A lot of times in a market that maybe isn't so much a seller's market, maybe it's a little more on the buy side, they may want to overprice their house. Because why? Well, sellers are all emotionally invested in their homes, right? So I once had a seller pretty much tell me his home was built with golden nails. And so even though no one could see the golden nails under the wall, it was built in a very specific way. And so he should get a lot more than any other home. Well, unfortunately, what he was referring to was something the average buyer couldn't see because it was under the walls, right? It was a type of insulation, a type of building that he had installed. The problem with that is that when they want to overprice their home, if you have, let's say, an overpriced expired right in your CMA, you can pull that out and you can say, you know what, Mr. Schmagegi, I appreciate that your home was built with golden nails. However, Joe over there on the corner, he thought his house was worth $60,000 more than it was. And look, it's been on the market 400 days now. He's had 3 price reductions. A lot of times that's a great way to get the seller to be more realistic about the home price that they're going to list at. So again, not so much in this market, but down the road, if the market ever shifts, including one very overpriced expired sometimes can be very helpful, especially again, if it's been on the market 400 days and they've got, 2 or 3 price reductions, it will help you get that listing price right from the beginning. Another thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I'm going back what an appraiser is going to go back. An appraiser isn't going to go back 3 years in this market. They're going to go back 6 months. So I want to make sure the comps that I'm looking at do the same thing. Now, I'm going to be honest, I absolutely hate these MLS calendars. You got to click and then click and click. Just use the easy drop down. Just click on, I want to go 6 months back for my comparables. The other thing is I don't want to include a bunch of leases. I want to make sure I'm telling them what it's actually going to sell for. So I want to make sure I adjust where it says sale and rent. I really only just want to show what it's going to sell for. All right, so I'm going to scroll on down here. Obviously, the more information I'm putting in, the better comps I'm going to get. So this happens to be a brick ranch that we're listing. So I'm going to say it's a 1-story home. It also happens to have 3 bedrooms. So I'm going to do 3 to 4 because there's such a shortage of inventory. I'm also going to say that this is it's a 1.5 bath. So I'm going to do 1 to 2 just to make sure I pull up enough properties here. And then, yes, it's built on a basement. So I'm going to select yes. Does it have a garage? Yes, this property does. And of course, you could put in things like attached garage. I am not one, especially in this market, to add a lot of features in. And the reason is, if I say, well, this home has 2 fireplaces, I want to make sure I find comps with 2 fireplaces. Well, the problem is features are usually optional, and the other agent may not have selected fireplace. because it's not a required field. So I generally don't like to use features when I'm doing a CMA because I may lose a valuable comp that unfortunately could have brought my seller more money. So I don't generally do that. But I do go down to where it says above grade square footage, because there's a lot of question on, well, what do you put in there when you're trying to find comps? Well, what I put in there is I use what the appraisers use. I use the 20% square footage rule. So basically, this home is 1,361 square feet. So what I would do is I would take 20% of that, and I would figure out that calculation, and then I would take 20% off that 1,361, and then I would add 20% onto that 1,361. So let me see if I can find my calculator app real quick just to kind of cover it. I think it probably makes sense, but I'm going to just show you real quick. So it's 1,361. I'm going to go ahead and find 20% of that number. So it works out to 272. So I'm going to take that 272 plus 1,361, and that's going to give me my, so I'd probably round it to 1,600. And then you're going to take that 1,361, do the same thing. You're going to minus that 272 off of that number. So now I've got my base square footage. So I'm going to say 1,600 to, I think it was 1,150 or something like that. Anyway, so now we've got our 20% square footage range, and that's what most appraisers are going to use. But there's also other things that you can add in, like year built. If you are going to list a property, and let's say it's a new construction property, well, you're not going to want to compare that to homes built in the 1930s, right? Because that's going to really mess up your numbers. So sometimes if you are, especially if you're doing new construction, you may want to put a year built in. So if you go down to that secondary criteria, there's that, and a lot of people don't know this is here. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, in my real account where I search as an agent, I have moved both the acreage and the year built right out of here. I moved it right up to the top in my top box here because I don't want to always have to scroll down. That's something I use so often. I do not want to have to scroll down every single time that I want to use year built or acreage. So if you're an agent like me, you can go to customize, move those fields up, move them right up at the top if you're using them a lot. You don't have to scroll all the way down every single time. So long story short, again, you can use things like acreage, year built, they're down a little bit further, but you want to make sure you have the basics. You want to have bedrooms, bathrooms, does it have a basement? Does it have a garage? What's your square footage? And you of course want to have closed for sure. And I always recommend active and pending. All right, so what's next? Well, you're probably looking and saying, oh, that lady with the fuzzy hair, she's got 5,000 comps. Well, you're right, because we haven't put in where we're looking yet. I want to do what an appraiser is going to do. An appraiser generally in the area that this home is not going to go out 10 miles, right? They're going to want to go within 1 mile. They're going to want to look within that 20% square footage rule. These are all things that appraisers use when they're appraising these homes. So what I want to do is I want to go to my search by map, because I want to do exactly what they're doing. I want to stay close to my comp. When you go into search by map, it eliminates you having to fill out county and city and area and go in and try to figure that all out yourself. Here's a little tip. When you click on search by map, if you go right into this box right here, this search box, and you start typing in your subject property, so I'm going to do Wessel in Sterling Heights. Okay, now what I generally do too is this uses Google Maps. So I put in just the route street name. This happens to be Wessel Drive, but I leave off the drives, the ways, the places, the courts, because as you know, in Google, less is best. But I do make sure that I put a comma and the city, because you don't want to end up like in Kentucky on another Wessel Drive, right? So you want to do the route street name, comma, the city, Now here is your first tip and trick to write down. If you are taking notes, you always have to do this in a two-step process. Now, I'm not sure why it's a little frustrating, but you do have to do the address first, then click the magnifying glass to locate the subject property. Okay, here's our little subject property right here. The next thing I want to do is I want to search like an appraiser is going to do. Okay, so I'm going to just zoom this out a little so you can see exactly what I'm about to do. I want to stay within 1 mile of this subject property. So I'm going to go right up here to search 1, search radius, and what I just did is exactly what an appraiser is going to do. I've now found the subject property. Here it is. I've now created a radius to find the comparables. Now you're probably thinking, well, I don't see anything. Well, basically these clustered numbers, they literally just mean that the property is very close to one another. So if you zoom in, it will break them apart. But obviously, if you just click on the cluster, well, right over here to the left, you'll see that those comps will appear. So if I click on it, it'll show me the comp, it'll show me the information. I can scroll down and I can even jump right to the listing ticket to see all of the detail. Okay, now, what about the things that no one ever told me when I was trying to do my CMA, my first CMA? And so I'm going to show you those too. I'm going to show you some cool ways that you can actually go in and hone your CMA and make it even more exact. So Marietta, who I believe was on the call, I lost, normally Debbie, I can see attendees, but I can't see anybody today. So Marietta, I believe, was on the call. She's just so sweet. I always enjoy going to her office and chatting with her. But let's say Marietta is having a great month and she just listed, let's say she just listed a couple million. That's great. We're going to pretend that Marietta just listed these 3 properties, and we're going to do a little pretending. I have an 8-year-old, so I do a lot of pretending in my house. We're going to pretend that this Clinton River and Dodge Park area, we're going to pretend for a moment this is actually waterfront. And Marietta has listed these 3 houses right here. They're $1 million homes. They're absolutely stunning. They're right on the water. But we've got a little subject brick ranch back here. It's not by the water and it's not worth $1 million. Really, these $1 million waterfront properties are going to totally mess up my search. So what do you do for something like that? So you don't have to go in and remove a bunch of properties. Well, let me show you a little trick. So Marietta, we're all very happy for you that you got these $1 million properties, but we don't want it to mess up our CMA. So we're going to go over here to the drawing tools. And this is where you can actually do shapes on your map. By the way, you can have up to 10 shapes on the map now. So if you have buyers looking in all different areas, that becomes really more helpful. You can only do 5 before this, so it's so much nicer. But we're going to grab the polygon shape for a moment, and we're going to say, okay, this area right here is all beautiful $1 million waterfront homes. And that's all well and good, but I don't want to include any of those waterfronts in my comps. The next thing I want to do, because you're probably thinking, well, that lady with the fuzzy hair, didn't she just make a shape on a shape? I mean, how does that even help? Well, you're right. One more step. I want to go back to the edit button up here. And where you see this blue checkbox that says include right here, I want to exclude that. Now you see that those $1 million waterfront sections, those listings are gone. I don't have to go in and deselect a bunch of properties that I really didn't mean to add. So it's a really nice way, especially like if you think about Rivergate, the Rivergate sub in Clinton Township is a good example. There are some older homes there, and then there were some new construction homes. So if you knew the dividing line and you want to do a CMA and you again want to exclude those new construction homes, well, you could actually draw the line, or again, you could do it by year built if that's easier for you. But sometimes you need to exclude a particular area in your CMA, and this is a really fast and easy way to do that. Okay, and don't forget they've also made some enhancements to the mapping too. Under this, it kind of looks like a piece of paper, if you will. You now can add things like floodplains. If you want to know, if you're working, let's say, with a buyer, and you want to know, well, is this going to fall in the floodplain where we see a lot of flooding right now? You can actually see it will apply that. I think you can probably see that right onto my map. So that they've added some really great enhancements, attendance zones, floodplain information. A lot of that is located right under those little stacks of paper there, if you will. And you can turn them on, you can Google them on, or turn them off. For me, I also like to, I'm just going to turn this off so it's not so confusing. I also like to kind of check out the neighborhood without having to drive all the way across town. So if you want to check out the neighborhood, you can also use the Google Man. And now I'm going to be honest, I've looked at this a million times, and for the longest time, I never even saw this. So I thought I would just point it out. Over here on the right, there is this little yellow Google Man. And if you drag that little Google Man and you set him in front of a property, and it will actually tell you exactly where you're going to set him, you can actually walk down the street and check out the neighborhood. So literally, I can kind of check out, oh yeah, they're mostly brick ranch homes. And it allows me to do a 360 view. This also allows you to check out the neighbor to the left and right. But here's what I really like. Do you see this little subject flag? This is actually showing me the subject property right here. It's actually put the flag right on the property that I'm going to be listing. So it's a great way too to be able to kind of walk down the street and check out the neighborhood of the listing. So I always love that. I always think it's just a really easy way to kind of see things before you get there. One enhancement that Paragon recently made was they added the 3 tabs along the top. So if I forgot to add something in my criteria, it used to be you had to save it, go back, it was a big hot mess. But now, if I forgot to add something like 2-car garage, or I forgot to add the square footage, or I forgot to take out leases, I can actually bounce right back to the criteria by simply clicking on the criteria tab. If I want to go back to my map, I can do that. So it allows me to kind of bounce back and forth when I'm adding criteria and making sure that I have the right number of comps. Lastly, I want to go in and I can see I've got 16 comps. Really, your goal is between 3 and 5 closed comps. But remember, I also added some actives and pendings here too. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to do my search. Now, I had one lady in my class about a week ago and she said, well, can't you just click the button and it just does all that for you? Well, no, we still obviously want to go in and we want to review the properties. You know, obviously we want to make sure that, you know, it's a like property by looking at interior photos and going through the additional information. But what I like to do here is I like to sort. I kind of have a little OCD, so I need things in a little more order. So I like to click on the top of the column headings under status, so I can see the actives with actives, closed with closed, and pending with pending. And as you can clearly see, everything in that community is either pending or closed. There are no actives, as we're seeing all over the place, right? The next thing I'd want to do is I'd want to go through these properties because I can clearly see there are some outliers right here. And this one happens to be new construction. So I know this one is not going to be very similar to my particular home. So what I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of go in and pretend I reviewed these and I came up with these as potential comps. I'm going to go down and grab my pendings too here. Now again, having OCD, I hate when there's more stuff on the page than I really want to be working with. So what I would do is I would click this checked box. Now I'm only working with the properties I've actually selected. I've got rid of all those ones that I decided were not what I wanted. Right up here at the top, I've got my my lows, average, high, and median price. So it's kind of like a little mini breakdown here of the properties that I selected. All right, so how do you get all of these comps into your great CMA presentation? And here's the answer. It's the easy button. And the easy button is actually located under actions. Okay. Before I jump in there, I see we got I see the question mark flashing. Debbie, do we have any questions we want to cover before we jump into the cloud part?
We are all caught up in the questions. Thank you.
You rock. Thank you. All right, so the easy button. I'm all about easy buttons. So once you have the hardest part of your CMA done, which by the way is the part we just did, the rest is pretty cakewalk, because we're going to set you up a template today that's going to make everything flow very nicely right from Paragon right into CloudCMA so that it's all set up for you. So where is this easy button? Well, the easy button is kind of like, think of it like this little plug right here. You're plugging it into another program. So we're going to go to Actions, and we're going to click on, now there's two, so be careful. There's a buyer tour. If you're showing first-time home buyers around, this is a really nice way to put all their comps in a nice little thing that you can email over to them. But what I like to do is that I would like you to click on the CloudCMA CMA button, because that's going to take you and all those comps you've just selected right into Cloud. Now, some cool stuff that they've recently added, so let's take a look at that. First, Cloud is really navigated by these 4 tabs along the top. The criteria, the basically what you're creating, the listings it brought over, how you want to customize, and don't think of publish as anything you have to do. It's a save button. Think of publish as any change you make, you hit that publish button, it saves it for you. So the first thing you are required to do is give it a name. So we're going to call this Sally Ann Seller. The next thing we want to do is we want to put in our property address. Now this is really cool, you're going to like this. What this does now, when you start typing in your subject property, it's going to quick fill, and there's a reason. As it quick fills, it will put in the square footage for you, as you just saw, the bathrooms, bedrooms. Now you can change them, so if something's not correct, don't worry, it's not stuck in there. But you can actually put in the information directly from the tax records, which I love. The other thing is, if you have a photo of the home, this is where you could go ahead and upload that photo. But if you're one-stepping your listing appointment, I will show you a little cheat, because I'm all about the easy buttons. All right. So when you're preparing, as I mentioned, one of the things you want to do when you're preparing for your CMA is you want to get the tax information from BS&A, and you also want to get it from RealList. Now I'm going to show you another kind of cool little trick here. If I start typing in the address here, I'm going to pull up the closed record. If you go in from the closed record, it will actually waive your fee because you're an you're a MiRealSource member if you're looking in Macomb County, any of the Grosse Pointes, or if you're looking in Genesee County. So let me show you. Instead of having to go into taxes and pull up the BS&A record and get out my credit card to get that information, which some municipalities charge and some don't, but I don't want to pay the $2 either way. So I'm going to go to the closed record. I'm going to click on this, and I apologize, it looks like a garbage can. It's supposed to be a government pillar, no pun intended, but when he went to put the government pillar on the button, it shrunk it down, and now it looks a little more, unfortunately, like a garbage can than a pillar. So I apologize. But if you want the BS&A record and you click on that little pillar there, it will take you directly with no fee into that record for the municipality. Okay, so as you can see, it's taking me directly into that house record. Here's where I can get the tax information, the building information, outstanding water bills, but here's a little cheat. If you haven't been to the house yet, click on the, and by the way, this picture is public record, so you're not stealing anything. It's not like stealing an MLS photo, don't do that. But you can actually, excuse me, you can click on that house photo and you can right click on it and save the image. that can be the image that you use for the front of your CMA. So I'm going to call this Deb photo so I can find it. Okay, I'm going to actually put that on my desktop. But that way, even if I haven't been to the home before, when I am creating my CMA, I can go to add the cover photo. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to look for the photo I just grabbed. And I can now crop it right from here. So maybe I want to, let's say I want to bring it down here, bring it in a little bit, get the idea, I can crop it. And now I have a photo to display on the front of my CMA. Down below, it also says quick and dirty. I'm going to ask you, please don't use that. There is a purpose for it, and I'm going to show it to you in just a few moments, but it really is not what we want to present as agents. We want to really do our due diligence and go through the comparables. I really don't like this. Yeah, I spend more time cleaning it up than it's actually worth. But right over here, you'll notice all the MLS numbers have been brought over from Paragon. And the cool thing is it doesn't matter what the MLS is. It's anyone we data share with. So whether the property came from RealComp, whether it came from Ann Arbor, whether it came from a different MLS, doesn't matter. It's still going to pull through our data sharing efforts. So that means any property you select as a comp, no matter what MLS it was listed in, you'll be able to pull those directly into your report. Which I remember 10 years ago, I hate to date myself, I've been in the business now 22 years. 10 years ago, it didn't work that way. You had to actually manually enter other properties, and it was just a pain in the neck. So now it's so nice because no matter where it's listed, as long as they're in the data share, it pulls that over for you. All right, so we've got our base information. I'm going to go ahead and do the next step, which is fetch the listings. Really what it's doing is it's taking all those MLS numbers that you see down below, and it's just pulling them over into an organized view. Now, this is not something that, that your clients are going to see. This is something for you to see. It's one more chance to make sure that you've got it looking just the way you want. I'll tell you a funny story. My very first listing appointment, I remember my broker, as I was walking out the door, I was so excited, you know, got all my little papers, and, you know, back then everything was paper. So walked out the door and he said, get that listing low. And so it was all about get the price down, get the price down. So of course, my first 3 comps were extremely low. I mean, really, really low. And I almost didn't get to finish my CMA because the homeowner was kind of offended by the low comps that I had in the beginning of the report. So sometimes it's also stacking those in the right order. So you may want to grab your comps and reorder them. You can actually grab them and choose the order that you want them to be stacked in. If you've gotten all the way to this point and you're like, oh man, I thought I didn't select that 260. Well, we can deselect it here and it will simply remove it from our numbers and our report. If you want more information, you can also click on details and adjustments. And I think it was Beth who asked that great question early on. And Beth, you had asked the $1 million question. What about adjustments? What about if this house is the only one that doesn't have a garage and that's why it closed for less? 2 things. Back in the day, I used to print everything out and I would put Post-it notes on it. It says, oh, it didn't have garage or didn't have central air or things like that. Keep in mind, it's pulling the MLS comments over, but many times if I want to remind myself to point out something on the listing, I will go to this descriptions box and I will say, no garage in all caps. So I'm reminded as I'm going through it to point out to the homeowner that maybe it closed for less because it didn't have a garage. So that's a great little note place if you want to add a note. However, and by the way, all the photos are here, so you can go through those as well. Bless you. Down below here, though, there is an adjustments area. So I can go in and I can say, you know what, home without a garage, negative, whatever that number is. Now, Debbie, our Director of Education, who's answering the questions today, she's really good at home improvement. I am not so much. I wish I was like that Joanna Gaines lady who could like look at a kitchen and say, if we do this, this, and this, it's going to bring you X to your home. I'm not quite that good. I have to have a tool to help me do that. So if you are looking to add in adjustments, NAR, and this is not a tool you get through MiRealSource, by the way. It is a tool you get through the National Association of Realtors. But I found it extremely helpful, so I've kind of incorporated into this class. Debbie, I hope you don't mind. But I have used the RPR system for adjustments, and I love it. So I'm just going to show it to you. You don't have to do this. This is an extra step if you wanted to, but you don't have to. If you want to include adjustments on properties, right in Paragon, under your resources, which by the way is your toolbox where you find all your great tools, you will find the link to log into RPR. Again, this is a tool you get as a National Association of Realtor member. You can click on the RPR and it will take you into a way to find those adjustments. Now, RPR is the Realtor Property Resource. It's what you get as being a National Association of Realtor member. There's a whole bunch in here. There's even a CMA. I do not like the CMA that's in here, by the way, but I do really like one of the things that they have, and it is the Hanley Woods Refined Value Model. So let me show you how it works. So basically, you log in, you type in the address, it'll quick fill for you. You click on it. Another great resource for getting photos of the property, maps of the property, heat maps. There's a whole bunch you can do in here. There's actually a lot of cool stuff that you can do in here. But if I want to find out what let's say a remodeled kitchen on this home, what value would that bring? Well, a remodeled kitchen in this neighborhood versus a remodeled kitchen in California, wow, the numbers are going to be radically different, right? So let's take a look. If we go to the top of the page where you find refined value, this is where you, the agents, get asked basically a series of questions that will help you come up with a number for that kitchen or the garage or something like that. So let me show you how it works. I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to do this one. So let's say you're getting ready to list this property and they say, you know what, we just did a major upscale kitchen remodel. I mean, stainless steel appliances, it's really looking beautiful. And they give you kind of an idea of what that would be when they say upscale. When was it completed? Obviously, the older the improvement, the less it's worth. So we're going to say we did this last October. How much money did that homeowner spend? We're going to say that they put $25,000 into that new kitchen. So what exactly would that bring to that homeowner as far as what kind of value? Well, let's face it, when you walk into a seller's house, they say things like, well, we just redid the kitchen for $25,000. We think that should get us an extra $100,000 for our house, right? You know, they lose their minds a little when it comes to the remodeling. Instead of me being the bad guy, and instead of me saying, you know, no, it's not worth that, you can actually show them using this refined value model. You could say, okay, I want to find out what that's going to be worth, hit the add button, and it will give you a baseline value. Now, is it the, you know, gospel? No, but it is what many flippers are now using when they're calculating flips and remodels. So again, this is a free tool you get through the National Association of Realtors. Don't be afraid to use it. The refined value model, there's a whole class on RPR, but it's a really good way to kind of calculate what those adjustments are going to be. Okay? And then, of course, you could plug those adjustments right in to that listing. All right, so again, if I wanted to put the negative or positive value in here, I could type in, okay, here's my kitchen, 14,000. You could also do a negative value of 14,000, and then that would allow you to show it on the adjustments page. You up here can do a suggested price range. So maybe you're suggesting a price range of, what did we say? Our average is 243. So we're going to say we're doing a 240 to a 250. So don't be afraid, especially if you've not been in the home before. It's funny, this particular home that we're doing was an absolute dollhouse from the outside. As you can see, it's just a cute little brick ranch. All the flowers were planted in a perfect row. But literally when I stepped into this house, it had, I kid you not, Debbie would laugh hysterically, it had blue, I mean like blue, like Grover blue shag carpeting. And those huge stick-on wallflowers, like from the Brady Bunch, in like every room. It was like one of those. And I know they say that's coming back, but trust me, it ain't ever coming this far back. So it was one of the, what'd you say?
Hey, I don't mean to interrupt the story. It's such a great point because I'm over here chuckling at the, would you call it Grover blue? That is such a visual. I love it. But Beth was asking if you could show us that again, and I'm pretty sure she's talking about the Hanley Woods model over in RPR.
Sure. Yes. So let me, I can absolutely do that. I know it's not something we generally include in the class, but I got to tell you, I really, really like it. So let me show you again how I got there. Close that out. I went right into Paragon. Remember, your toolbox is your resources. Mine looks like a little drink today because that would be my resource lately. I'm just kidding. Going into your resources, you're going to find the RPR, Realtor Property Resource. I have my, once you log in, it will remember you, and so I just log right in directly. Once you're there, you're going to type in the address. You can see I already searched for it, so it's right in my recent searches. Once you're on the address, and again, another great place to get a photo, but I want to do the refined value. I'm going to scroll down. And you know, there's, like I said, there's garage, there's bathroom, there's deck, there's, you know, finished basement. And there's so many that you can go through. It's a big, long list, but that's where you can find that value. So you just answer the questions. So we'll do, let's see, a bathroom mid-range. We'll do August of 2018. How much did they put in? We'll say they did a $10,000 remodel. I hit add. And you can see that gave us a positive adjustment of 5,000. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Any more questions? I know I kind of bounced around. Normally that's not something we include in the class, but I just thought it was so helpful as a kind of a guide or a baseline. You can print that off, by the way. So again, if you don't want to hurt the homeowner's feelings, one of the Floyd Wickman tricks was always never tell a homeowner anything. Always show them everything as a fact on paper. This is a really good way to do that.
Thank you, Colleen.
All right, perfect. And I'm kind of bouncing all over, Deb, so let me know if there's any more questions. All right, so back on this page again, you could add those positive or negative adjustments in right here. And again, if you have a negative adjustment, you're just going to put the negative sign in front of it. Positive, you'll just type the number in. And then basically, we're really kind of done with this page. You can do a net sheet here. I'm going to be honest, I don't do the net sheet here. I like the one in Transaction Desk because it calculates everything for me. That way I don't make any mathematical mistakes, but you could use the one in here, but you have to type it out. It will save the items, but you always have to refigure the math. I'm not a big fan of having to do that. So I don't use the net sheet that's in here. I bring mine in right from Transaction Desk because remember, you can bring in those custom pages. But really, if you did your homework in Paragon and you selected the comps and you made sure you only wanted to use those particular comps, there's really nothing you would have to do on this page at all, except maybe put in your price range that you want to suggest. And you don't even have to do that, quite honestly. The next thing you want to do is customize your report. This is the part where you want to set up your template. They have some great themes in here, but you do want to make sure when you go in here, if you, let's say, work for Century 21, you don't want to be showing up with the RE/MAX balloon on your stuff. So you do want to make sure that your theme, which is basically your company colors, is set up correctly. I should also mention that if you are with Real Estate One or RE/MAX, and I believe those are the only two at this point, they have custom pages already built for you. So if you are with a Real Estate One or a RE/MAX company, you want to choose those in the drop down, because when you do, it will give you they pay thousands and thousands of dollars to put in these really cool marketing pieces. When I was with Real Estate One, I was truly amazed at the great stuff that they had for you to choose from in there. So again, if you're with RE/MAX or Real Estate One, make sure you select that from the drop down. So that you can use those custom pages that they paid for. For everyone else, make sure you want to pick your company colors, and there's just about every company color. If you do want your branding, like your photo at the bottom, you want to choose from the modern themes, because that will give you the photos and more graphics, okay? The next thing is your layout. Now this only refers to the comparables. This is not talking about your report. It's talking about how do you want your comparables stacked up. If you want a shorter report, well, you may want them in columns. So 4 are on 1. If you're like me, I want all the interior photos and the photos with the maximum data. So what I do is I choose this one. So it just really refers to how do you want your comps to look. Then you can set up different templates. When you've got your CMA looking just like you want it, you can see I've got a Colleen's short CMA, Colleen's awesome long CMA. There's some that are already done, like appraiser reports, comps only if you're working with buyers, or a buyer CMA. So you can actually save your own, or you can use one that they already have set up for you. All right, now here I have to give you a little caution because I have found this out the hard way several times. I would not recommend changing your fonts. And here's what happens. A lot of times when you start changing the fonts, it starts cutting off the long description in the MLS. I just had a really great conversation recently with Flo Adke's assistant, and the numbers were kind of offline. It didn't look very nice. And it's due to changing the font. So I really do recommend just sticking with the default font, so you don't have to. I learned the hard way. That can be a true challenge. I was sitting at someone's table and half of the stuff was cut off, and it just didn't look very nice. So I recommend staying with the default font. Down here, and think of this page as everything on your CMA report is going to be right here in this white column. Anything additional that you could add simply be over here to the left. Now here's the thing. If you're kind of like me and you're more of a meat and potatoes person, well, you may want to not have all the details in here. So maybe you want to get rid of a particular page. Maybe you want to get rid of this page. You can simply click the minus button next to it, and it will float out of your report. Don't worry, it's not gone forever. You can always go back over to the left-hand side, and you can add it back in by simply clicking on the plus, and you can also drag and drop them into any order. Now, one of the things that they added not that long ago, which I love, it used to be you had to open the report every time you wanted to see what was on a particular page. Well, what a pain in the neck that was. So if you want to see what's on a particular page, you can simply click on the page name, and it will show you a preview of what that page is going to look like.
Yeah, that's
also,
nice.
you'll notice, I'm sorry?
I like that feature.
Isn't that, no, it was, yeah. Man, it was a pain before.
I did have another question. Actually, Mary was nice enough to add. I'm sorry, I was responding to a text message, so I didn't see where you had it. She said, where do you add the 5,262 to?
Oh, good question. Okay, so let me go back. That's going to be on the previous page, because that's something you're going to see as the agent. So if I just jump back to the listing section, so one back, and it's where you see this details and adjustments. Okay, so you're going to click that open. That's actually where you're going to put in your, so I assume she's talking about the bathroom or the kitchen remodel. I would do kitchen remodel. And I would put in my positive or negative adjustment for that and save it. So if we did 5,698, I would go ahead and then save that to my adjustments page. So go ahead and hit save. If you want to remove it, you hit the garbage can, you can go ahead and remove it. So it does, now this is going to appear on your adjustments page, and I'll show you that too. So hopefully that answered the question.
Excellent.
Good
yes,
question.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. All right, so let's go back to our customized page. So if you wanted all of those adjustments to be laid out, there's an actual adjustments page. And I don't think I added it to this particular one. So let me see if I can find it quickly. Oh, right here. So here's your adjustments page. And again, you could move that up or down. I usually keep it right with the comps. So right after the more photos. Oh, another quick thing. If you are printing your report, you may not want all the photos. Remember, you can have 99 photos in the MLS. If you don't want to have to print all those, of course, you could just save it as a PDF, or you could do the live version. But if you're going to print it out and you want to minus it, you can actually just click on that minus button. And remember, it's not gone forever. You can always go back and add it back in if you wanted to. And you can move these pages around. Okay. Now let's talk about our custom pages. So I am a huge fan of custom pages because, as I mentioned, I put in the BSNA, I put in the real list record, I put in the market stats, what's going on in their market. I put in things like utility bills. And I'll show you a couple of these that I really like. Okay, so one of these pages I made because I got frustrated every single time I would sit down at a seller's table. They would say, Colleen, going to put my house on Zillow? Going to put my house on Realtor.com? Where are you going to advertise my house? So I said, you know what? Instead of them having to ask me, I'm going to make this like the 5th page of my CMA. And so what I did is I actually just took the top logos and I said, you know what, I'm going to put you on over 400 different sites. These are the top ones that you can see here, just ones that are going to recognize. And I actually made this a custom page right in my CMA. So I'm handling that objection even before they ask it, okay? Other really good examples of things to bring in are utility bills, outstanding water bills. As I mentioned, I just had that home in Warren. Is this it? Oh, no, it's not. There was an outstanding water bill of $700. Well, I want to make sure I'm covering that in my CMA because that's definitely going to affect their bottom line. So I actually bring in the utility bills, unpaid taxes. I bring those in as well. Another one that I wanted to show you that I did something kind of unique that I thought was kind of cool was market condition. I think this is it. This is the one I'm looking for. No. What I did is I had a property in Warren, and it was an out-of-country investor who bought it. He was actually, where is he from? I think he's from Mexico. Anyway, he purchased this home. He never actually saw the home. And so he's hearing that things are selling for record highs. He calls me, says, hey, I need to sell this property. I go to the property and it was an absolute mess. The renters had just completely trashed the place. So instead of me saying, yeah, I know you think you're going to get more for this, but you're truly not because I just was there and it's a hot mess. I wanted to, again, show him on paper, right? I wanted to actually show him the condition of the home and what needed to be done before we could even put it on the market. Because I mean, they had stolen some of the plumbing out of it. It was just, it was not good. So here it is right here. So I did a condition, I called it condition of the property. And you can call these whatever you want, by the way. You can name them whatever you choose. But what I wanted to show him was that there was a lot of work that needed to be done. This is actually not the same property, but this is a different property, very much like that. So I just went to the property and I took a picture. One, it was tagged for no C of O. There was a lot of debris and things left in the home when I went to list it. And the flooring, they had obviously started removing the flooring. Part of it had kind of caved in. The water tank was gone. It was just, there was a, oh no, the water tank was there on that one. There's just a lot of, as you can see, a lot of work that needed to be done. So I went and took photos of the home, and I brought the photos into my custom pages. So all I did is I took photos, saved them, and added them to a Word doc. I pulled it into CloudCMA, which converted it to a PDF for me. And now I could show him everything that needed to be done on the property. So don't be afraid to get creative. Don't be afraid to bring those outside things in to make your CMA unique. Remember, everybody gets CloudCMA. What makes it unique is the homework you do and the great custom pages you add. All right, so the last step before I show you how to do that is to simply publish your report. So once you've got it all set up like you want it, you're going to click the publish button. Remember, publish just means save. So if you change a client's name, if you change the address, you always have to go back and publish it in order for that change to take place on all of the pages. So now I've gone ahead and I have clicked publish to save my changes. Now it's just, how do I want to present it? Remember that I can present it in a PDF like I showed you in the beginning. I can present it via live. I could go up here and I could just email it if I wanted to. There's also a slideshow link. I don't really recommend that as much. I don't think it's as nice as the live or the PDF version, but you can also go back and edit it at any time too. So if I wanted to make a change, or maybe 6 months went by and they didn't list yet, they worked on the house. Now I want to go in and add a couple more comparables. You could actually just click edit, open it up, and make those changes. Okay, so let's talk now about how do we add those custom pages in? How do we add those great marketing pieces in? One of the pieces, as I mentioned, that I like to add are the market stats, what's going on in the marketplace. So if I go into Paragon and I go under my resources, there is market stats right here. Remember I showed you those real cool fast stats in the beginning? When you go into market stats, right up here at the top, fast stats. So if you are listing a house in Sterling Heights, the hardest part of this would be clicking on the county and then clicking on the city name. This is probably going to shock us. I hate looking at these stats right now, to be totally honest. So stats right now in Sterling Heights, as we speak, are down almost 62% in inventory. Homes for sale in 2020, there wasn't that much to sell in 2020. There were 202 properties on the market. There are 77 today. Wow, look at the average sales price. Holy cow. Went from 242 to 293 in 1 year. So we saw almost a 21% increase in 1 year. Okay, so that's not really what I wanted to show you, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to do that.
Hey, and actually, Mary wanted to know how to get the stats doc again. Now that was a real, it's 3 steps, but it was a real easy process. And I realized that I do not have a cheat sheet on that one. So I believe that's one that I want to do, is just making one on fast stats.
Yes, so we went into Paragon. We'll just go over it again. I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit. Remember, we're recording this, so you can go back and save this recording. You can get to it at any time. So don't be worried if you miss something. It's there for you too. We're not leaving you high and dry, I promise. Debbie's got great cheat sheets, and we are recording this actual class, so you can get it anytime you want. Right up here under resources, market stats. Fast stats right here at the top. That's the one I like to use the most, quite honestly. Find your county. You're going to click on the county. So I'm going to click on Macomb. Find your city. Done. Really, it's about 3 clicks. Then from here, now how do you get it to CloudCMA? That's the good question, right? So what I would do is I would download it right to my computer. Okay, so I'm going to save it in my downloads here. Now, when I am in my CMA and I want to pull it in, I'm going to pull it in as a custom page. So let's take a look at how we do that. In order to add in any custom page, you're going to find your avatar or your picture in CloudCMA, so right up here at the top. Going to click on it, and we're going to select Custom Pages. Now, if you've got, let's say you want to do a resume, or you want to do a company page, there's a whole bunch of options, and they kind of have templates already here for you. So if I wanted to add my resume, I'd click on this little pencil icon, and I would go ahead and maybe paste my resume in. You could create a brand new one if you wanted to, but literally anyone that has the little pencil icon, you can just click on it and you can copy and paste your information in. However, the thing that I created with the sites, or maybe if you're with, or your market stats, or maybe if you're with a company that has some great marketing pages on your intranet, don't be afraid to pull those in. And you can see I've got quite a few in here. Here's my seller's net from Transaction Desk. As I mentioned, it actually pulls the information in for you. So you're afraid to pull those custom pages in. In order to do that, all you're going to do is you go to your custom pages in CloudCMA.
And there is a sheet loaded up on this too.
Okay, great. And then all you're going to do is go down to the bottom, click Upload a PDF. So if I wanted to pull in my market stats, I would go to my downloads that we just did. Here's my market stats report. And voila, it's that easy. It's very fast, very quick. Now when you're ready to add that to your CMA, so let's say you got your CMA all done, but you want to add the market stats, you want to add the BS&A record, all you're going to do is you're going to go to Edit. Of course, that would be something we would customize, right? We're making it custom to this report. By the way, you'll notice everything I set up is exactly the way I left it. All I have to do is go to my custom pages, find my report, which I think was right here. Click on the plus, and then just decide. It always drops it at the bottom. So all I need to do is decide where I would like to put that now. Okay, so very, very easy. And then of course, to save it, you want to hit that publish one more time. So easy to create those custom pages. And it literally, you just saw, I did that whole process in probably less than a minute, start to finish. Okay, now Cloud does a lot of other things too, just to be clear. You can make great property flyers. You can do detailed property reports. I really do like the flyers in here. They have some unique features, like when you email them, they can turn into property reports. I'll show you one real fast. And all you have to do is put in the MLS number, and you can choose the template style that you want. And then if you send it via email, people can also click on this QR code, as you're going to see here, and it turns it into a full 6-page property report. So as you can see, it was just a 1-page flyer that I put in my flyer boxes. I guess I should change that. And then now I've got more and more of that actual property information along with the interior photos. So it does a lot of cool things. There's detailed property reports, there's flyers, there's buyer tours that you can create for first-time home buyers in here. But I want to get to the 1-page report real quick too. So if you're working with first-time home buyers like these two were, you can also create this nice little buyer report that can show them, you know, they're always calling you saying, which house are we going to see first? It kind of creates this nice little thing that you can email over to them, and it shows them the properties you're going to show them, gives them a place to even keep track of their notes, what they thought of the place. So there's some very cool things you can do in here. But that's pretty much all of everything on the Cloud side. But one of the requests that we got via email yesterday that I made some notes on was, what if you just want a 1-page report? What if you just don't need all the bells and whistles? What if you got these comps that we picked in Paragon and it's your brother? We're just going to pretend Debbie's going to go list her brother's house. Well, her brother isn't going to need to see a full CloudCMA report, right? So once you've picked your comparables, you can also go right into Paragon under the CMA folder. So let me move my GoToWebinar box here. There is a nice little CMA folder under your reports section. So if you were to click on that CMA folder, you could create a quick view report, which kind of, if you're not looking to wow somebody, you just want to stack the houses up and see what's the going price, what are the basics, and you just kind of want to, give this to a brother or a family member, or maybe even just for yourself. Remember that there is a CMA report in one line basically, but you can change also what's in the report itself. You can go to customize, maybe acreage. Maybe you're doing something with acreage and you want to have the acreage show up in there. Maybe year built isn't there and you want to add year built. You can actually go to customize and add any fields you want. The other thing is there's also a CMA summary. So again, if you're just wanting to know for your own reference as the agent, really, what is the breakdown? Well, here's our average sold, our average list, our average price per square foot, cumulative days on market, and here's our acreage here. So if you wanted to break it down just for your own, idea, and by the way, you can still select or deselect comps here too. But if you just wanted a one-line property report, you can do it right from reports. If you're not looking for all the fancy bells and whistles, that CMA folder under reports is a really good reference too. All right, Debbie, I think I'm right on the money, 11:30. How'd I do?
Perfect. So we got through so much. We got the one-line report. You brought in not just one, but two different PDFs. So we showed you how to download a PDF and upload it into CloudCMA. Then don't forget to bring it into your report as the next step too. You do have to select those, and those are included in the handout. So don't forget to check out the handouts that are attached to the webinar here. We also keep those in Paragon. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a link called MLS Documents. You will find a treasure trove of information. Look at that, CMA. The Wessel Drive listing, yes indeed.
Yes, that's the blue shag carpet, believe it or not. So cute, little dollhouse from the outside, immaculately maintained, but woof, man, there was some 60s, 70s throwback going on in that house. So, but anyway, so hopefully, and as Debbie mentioned, we have our YouTube channel where we're recording this. If you actually go to YouTube, well, first let me show you Debbie's MLS documents that she has worked so hard on. Right in Paragon, if you go to MLS documents, she created a whole education folder, 80 files of cheat sheets for you. So if you just click on that file folder, there is everything. But if you want just the ones for cloud, go ahead and type in cloud. All of those will pop right up for you. We have our lead generation class. We'll even show you the cool lead generation piece that cloud has. But she's done a great job with these step-by-step handouts that you can print or save. She's attached most of them right into this webinar today too. And then on top of that, she's also been hard at work on our YouTube channel. We record all of our classes. I should say all, but I think 3 of our classes are recorded. And if you go to YouTube, MiRealSource Media, and you hit the subscribe button, it'll actually even tell you when this class is available so that you can save it or go back and watch it. So again, if you go to YouTube and you go to MiRealSource Media, you'll get a whole bunch of information from Taylor, but Debbie set up these really awesome playlists too. So you can actually click on playlists and you can see how to use real stats show. You can actually see things like how to use market stats and fast stats. You can see information on electronic lock boxes, as you can see here. And Debbie's done an awesome job with these great quick tips. So some of them are just 30, 40 seconds or maybe 2 minutes, but they give you this great little tip that you might not have known that can save you some time. So there's a whole bunch, but all the classes are in here, transaction desk, Center, creating CMAs. So don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button and check it out and use it as a resource. And this class will be uploaded, I think, later today, right, Deb?
Yes, I should be able to get to that today or either tomorrow afternoon.
All right. Any additional questions?
No, I think we got it. Mary and Beth were some great contributors today. Thank you so much for questions. Always make sure that we answer your questions, and it just lets us reiterate something and that somebody else is probably thinking, wow, thank you for asking that.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you always for teaching today. I always pick up new stuff, which is great. And just you solidify those things that we've been teaching for so long now. Oh, you're welcome, Therese. All right. Anything else? So don't forget, all of the handouts are loaded up in Paragon. Just type in either CMA or Cloud. You should be able to find them all. Everything that Colleen went over, there is a cheat sheet on. And if you can't find it, just ask us. We'll tell you where it is, or even just send it right to you.
Well, thank you, Debbie, for manning all those questions. Thanks, everybody. Happy selling. Go get some listings. We need that inventory out there.
Yes, indeed. Hey, take care, everybody. Bye, Roger. Thank you.
Bye, Roger.
Look at that, Mitchell. Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad we got a lot of great feedback here. All right.